This is Land of Havilah, Exodus 32. When Moses was on the mountain, the Israelites below were seeing, quote, the appearance of Yahweh's glory like a devouring fire on top of the mountain, Exodus 24:17. In the shadow of that glory, verse 1. When the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, the people gathered themselves together to Aaron and said to him, Come, make us gods which shall go before us. For as for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we don't know what has become of him. Comment, the people said to Aaron, Come, make us gods which shall go before us, meaning make idols to take us to the promised land. Only about 40 days ago they heard Yahweh with their own ears, saying, quote, I am Yahweh your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourselves an idol. Exodus 20:2-4. And now they want to make an idol. We know this is unthinkably evil, not to mention senseless after all they've seen. Evil's always senseless. 1 Samuel 12:21, quote, Don't turn away to go after vain things which can't profit or deliver, end quote. Verse 2. Aaron said to them, Take off the golden rings which are in the ears of your wives, of your sons, and of your daughters, and bring them to me. All the people took off the golden rings which were in their ears and brought them to Aaron. He received what they handed him, fashioned it with an engraving tool, and made it a molten calf. Then they said, These are your gods, Israel, which brought you up out of the land of Egypt. When Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it, and Aaron made a proclamation and said, Tomorrow shall be a feast to Yahweh. Comment, Aaron's leadership style was to listen to the crowd and do whatever they said. We see the obvious foolishness of it when we read it here, but it's a common thing to listen to what the crowd says and just go with it. Can't do it that way. Verse 6. They rose up early on the next day and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings, and the people sat down to eat and to drink and rose up to play. Comment, many times party-goers knowingly insult God. Coming up after 40 days and nights, Yahweh will command Moses to go down. Verse 7. Yahweh spoke to Moses, Go, get down, for your people who you brought up out of the land of Egypt have corrupted themselves. Comment, corrupted here is Hebrew shakath, which also means destroy. Corruption of oneself and destruction of oneself are the same thing. Rust is a corruption and destruction of metal, for example, and sin is a corruption and destruction of man. In verse 7, Yahweh called the people Moses' people, that Moses brought out of the land of Egypt. Yahweh doesn't want to claim them. Verse 8, They have turned quickly away out of the way which I commanded them. They've made themselves a molten calf and have worshipped it and have sacrificed to it and said, These are your gods, Israel, which brought you up out of the land of Egypt. Yahweh said to Moses, I've seen these people, and behold, they are a stiff-necked people. Comment, stiff-necked means stubborn. If a horse doesn't turn easily, he's stiff-necked. Verse 10. Now therefore leave me alone, that my wrath may burn hot against them, and that I may consume them, and I'll make of you a great nation. Comment, God already warned them through Moses, quote, He who sacrifices to any god except to Yahweh only shall be utterly destroyed. Exodus 22:20. Yahweh commanded Moses, Leave me alone. In other words, don't even pray for them. I'll kill them and start fresh with just you. Verse 11. Moses begged Yahweh his God and said, Yahweh, why does your wrath burn hot against your people that you have brought out of the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand? Comment, Moses says, why does your wrath burn hot? He's defending them. What could he possibly say in their defense? Is it possible to change the mind of God on this? Verse 12. Why should the Egyptians speak, saying, He brought them out for evil, to kill them in the mountains, and to consume them from the surface of the earth? Comment, that's Moses' point number 1. Yahweh did not have evil intent bringing Israel out of Egypt, but if he consumes them, it'll sure look like it. Verse 12. Turn from your fierce wrath and repent of this evil against your people. Comment, Moses tells Yahweh to repent. In other words, please change your mind. Coming up, Moses saved the best point for last. Verse 13. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants, to whom you swore by your own self, and said to them, I will multiply your offspring as the stars of the sky, and of all this land that I have spoken of, I will give to your offspring, and they shall inherit it forever. Comment, Moses says, you told Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob you would multiply their offspring and give them the land, not consume them. Case closed, because Moses reminded Yahweh of his own promises. Verse 14. Yahweh repented of the evil which he said he would do to his people. Comment, God changed his mind. It's one in a handful of times in the Bible that God changed his mind. Psalm 106:45 explains why he changed his mind. Quote, he remembered for them his covenant and repented according to the multitude of his loving kindnesses. End quote. So there were two factors, his covenant and his loving kindness. Verse 15. Moses turned and went down from the mountain with the 2 tablets of the testimony in his hand, tablets that were written on both their sides, on the one side and on the other. They were written. The tablets were the work of God, and the writing was the writing of God engraved on the tablets. When Joshua heard the noise of the people as they shouted, he said to Moses, there's the noise of war in the camp. Comment, where did Joshua come from? We have to go back 8 chapters to remember that Joshua went up the mountain with Moses, but we don't know how close he was to Moses during that time. But he's with him now, and he hears something. Speaking of Joshua, verse 18, he said, it isn't the voice of those who shout for victory, it's not the voice of those who cry for being overcome, but the noise of those who sing that I hear. As soon as he came near to the camp, he saw the calf and the dancing. Then Moses' anger grew hot, and he threw the tablets out of his hands and broke them beneath the mountain. Comment, interesting move, smashing the 10 Commandments at the base of the mountain. Speaking of Moses, verse 20, he took the calf which they had made and burned it with fire, ground it to powder, and scattered it on the water, and made the children of Israel drink it. Comment, Deuteronomy chapter 9 retells this incident. Verse 21 indicates there was a brook that descended out of the mountain, which is where Moses threw the gold dust. Coming up, any excuse for sin is lame, but none lamer than this one. Verse 21. Moses said to Aaron, what did these people do to you that you brought a great sin on them? Aaron said, don't let the anger of my Lord grow hot. You know the people that they're set on evil. For they said to me, make us gods which shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we don't know what's become of him. I said to them, whoever has any gold, let them take it off. So they gave it to me, and I threw it into the fire. And out came this calf. Comment, out came this calf. Really? It reminds us of politics in verse 21 when Moses asked Aaron, what did these people do to you that you brought a great sin on them? End quote. Did the people threaten Aaron? Politicians are without excuse when they knowingly make a wrong decision, though the people demand it. Most of the time it seems they do it even though they haven't been threatened. Then in verse 22, Aaron's excuse was, you know this people, how they're set on evil, end quote. In the same way, a politician might take inventory of public opinion and knowingly vote wrongly on a bill, thinking the people wouldn't accept him if he votes rightly on it. But the clamor of the people's no excuse to do something knowingly wrong. Verse 25. When Moses saw that the people had broken loose, for Aaron had let them loose for a derision among their enemies, then Moses stood in the gate of the camp and said, whoever is on Yahweh's side, come to me. All the sons of Levi gathered themselves together to him. He said to them, Yahweh says, the God of Israel, every man put his sword on his thigh and go back and forth from gate to gate throughout the camp, and every man kill his brother, and every man his companion, and every man his neighbor. The sons of Levi did according to the word of Moses, and there fell of the people that day about 3,000 men. Comment, in verse 25, sin gives opportunities to the enemies of God to hold the Christian in derision and to hold his God in derision. Quote, Aaron had let them loose for a derision among their enemies, end quote. Moses said, whoever's on Yahweh's side, come to me. Anyone who didn't come were risking their lives. We should come to Yahweh's side on every issue right away, no hesitation. About 3,000 men of those who didn't come died. When the Levites came to Moses, he said to them, verse 29, Moses said, "Consecrate yourselves today to Yahweh, yes, every man against his son and against his brother, that he may give you a blessing today." Comment: Moses commanded every man against his son and against his brother. We have to stand up to our friends and even our family. We must. Never mind the crowd. We have to think independently for God, even within our families. Verse 30. On the next day Moses said to the people, "You've sinned a great sin. Now I will go up to Yahweh. Perhaps I shall make atonement for your sin." Comment: He's going up to Yahweh, meaning back up the mountain. Verse 31. Moses returned to Yahweh and said, "Oh, this people have sinned a great sin and have made themselves gods of gold. Yet now, if you will, forgive their sin, and if not, please blot me out of your book which you have written." Yahweh said to Moses, "Whoever has sinned against me, him I will blot out of my book." Comment: 40 years from now, in Deuteronomy chapter 9, Moses will look back on this incident and add some detail to what we have here. During that first 40 days, he was on the mountain with no food or water. When he went back up to pray for the people, it was another 40 days without bread or water. So God miraculously sustained him during back-to-back 40-day periods with maybe a day in between. Verse 33 mentions a book, quote, "Whoever has sinned against me, him I will blot out of my book," end quote. In verse 32, Moses calls it the book you've written. Psalm 69:28 mentions, quote, "the book of life," end quote, in which the names of the righteous are written and others are blotted out. Isaiah 4:2 makes mention of a future time when everyone in Jerusalem will be holy and their names are, quote, "recorded for life," end quote. Daniel 12:1, Malachi 3:16, Philippians 4:3, Revelation 3:5, and Revelation 21:27 refer to the book, a book of memory, the book of life again, and the Lamb's book of life, all of them indicating a book with the names of the righteous, and some of them specifying that it's these who will occupy the Jerusalem of perfection or of eternity, a place that is to come, the dwelling place of God with men. So is there a literal book like that, or is that just a way of saying God keeps account? Either way, we have no righteousness to put our names in it. All we can do is answer the call, "Whoever's on Yahweh's side, come to me." Yahweh says, verse 34, "Now go, lead the people to the place of which I've spoken to you." Comment: that place is Canaan, Exodus 6:4, still in verse 34. "Behold, my angel shall go before you. Nevertheless, in the day when I punish, I'll punish them for their sin." Yahweh struck the people because they made the calf which Aaron made. Comment: Yahweh killed about 3,000 that day, but spared the vast majority. We sometimes might wonder why God doesn't straighten the world out right now by doing away with the wicked. That day is coming. Yahweh said in verse 34, "In the day when I punish, I will punish them for their sin," end quote. So he might delay justice for reasons that are complicated, but justice is coming, and all in a day's time. In the meantime, let's not wish judgment and destruction on anybody, but pray for the wicked in the example of Moses. Exodus 33 is next at landofhavilah.net, Exodus 33.